everybody. Welcome to this episode of Author Success Show. The special guest we have today is Neko Craft. Neko is a devoted writer whose love for storytelling runs as deep as his love for his husband and three furry companions. Despite holding a bachelor's degree in cybersecurity, his heart beats loudest for the world of fantasy fiction. Specializing in young adult dark fantasy, Nico's tales transport readers to realms brimming with magic, adventure, and romance. His work spans genres encompassing action packed fantasies, haunting paranormal romances, mind bending science fiction, and rich historical sagas. Nico's stories don't just entertain, they tackle social issues with empathy and insight, reflecting his commitment to diversity and inclusion, particularly within the LGBTQ plus community. At Happy Self Publishing, we have published three of Nico's books, and I can't wait to chat with him today. Hello, Nico. Welcome to Author Success Show.
Hello, Shizna.
You're a very special author for us because you're very unique in a certain way. Most clients, they write their book, their first manuscript, and then they start looking out for a publisher. Whereas in your case, I think the first time you spoke to me, you had already written several books, but you had not
Yes.
published any of them. So, any reason behind writing one book after the other before even getting them published?
So I think it was mostly me getting in my own head, but also listening to things like "you aren't good enough" or things like that, and I let what people say affect me and how I viewed myself. And it came like I always told myself that I was proud of myself. I mean, being someone from LGBT, like me being gay, is just like, oh yeah, I'm proud of myself. I accept myself, but in retrospect, like in just viewing myself, do I really accept myself? Am I confident in myself? And I had a talk with my husband, and he pretty much just told me just go full forward, like actually pursue it. And my best friend, he saw that he was like, you've literally been doing works forever. Just copyright them now. If you copyright them, you literally have no choice now. Just go
Hmm.
for it.
So, which means when you actually were writing the books, you did not have the end goal to publish them immediately. That was
Nope.
not your main goal. You just wrote for the joy of writing.
Correct.
That's amazing.
I pretty much went through and so I was having fun with the story. It started off with a fated beginning, and then it went
Mhm.
to I just started having fun with the story. Went to Bloody Vendetta. After that
Yeah.
comes Chamber of Truth, The Mystic Gardens, and it's that series itself is 12 books.
Yeah, the
The series
Paradox
that I
Saga.
hmm and
Mhm.
then I think it's funny because the book that I just did with you guys, The Last Prophecy, it was literally a spur of the moment thing where I literally was like, oh my God, let's have fun with this. And of course, I'm talking to myself when I do it because I love mythology, all of it. So I pretty much took, for this one, like, it was all like the way I summarized all three books that I was going to do was literally in 3 hours. And I just had fun with it. So the first book I took, like, Japanese mythology, which I love.
Mhm.
So like Amaterasu, from Hindu mythology, I took oh god, Lakshmi, Ganesha, Kali. I took like pretty much any mythology, even Yoruba, and I just had fun and merged it into one melting pot. Because most people like they don't know about all mythology, but
Yeah.
I find so much joy in just researching it, but making my own interpretation of it.
That's so cool. So you were always interested in mythology even before you became a writer. And
Yes,
finally, you got a chance to use all that knowledge that you were having all these years.
correct. While still making a story within a story, just having fun with
Yeah.
it.
That's so nice. So, how did you actually decide that you should start writing a book? Were you always having that goal as a child when you were growing up?
Nope.
Mhm.
I, just like any other child, I wanted to be an astronaut, but I learned that that was really short lived.
Right.
So I it started with that, but then when pretty much when I was graduating high school, my younger brother, he had been diagnosed with a terminal cancer, and he
Oh.
only had a 20% chance to live. And
Mhm.
so when that we waited to find another like specialist, and it increased to 40% chance. And to this day, he survived. He's lived.
Wow.
But in that time, I joined the military because I
Mm.
wanted to claim him, get him medically covered. So I pretty much did everything for my family. And then in retrospect now, it's just I've learned that I need to finally put myself first and do for me.
Yeah, got it. So when you were in the military, that's not when you actually wanted to write. So when did that spark of writing a book come about? Yeah, नमक क्या हुआ?
2018,
Mhm. So did
yeah.
you start
So
with
28,
2018?
yeah. So 2018 is when I pretty much was like, you know what? Let's have fun with this. And I just
Mhm.
started writing, and from there, I just had a blast. Although it, I'm still learning. Like in a sense, I'm still learning to write, but the journey of writing and telling stories is a journey itself. So I'm just enjoying it and learning as I go. Like
Mhm.
even some of my best friends, they were like, "Okay, we see where your key words are, or you just repeat certain words." And now I'm learning. Okay, deviate from that and learn how to grow.
Right.
Because the first time I ever wrote books, it was in script format. So it
Oh,
was
okay.
like a so then I changed then I had to learn how to change that over to how you actually read a novel, and I just had
Hmm.
fun with it.
Got it. So when you started to write, did you already plan this series or you started with one book at a time?
Oh, no, I am OCD, so I need a clear end goal if I'm going to do something. So
Mm.
I just for each part, I put key points that I wanted, and then I figured out how many books would hit those key points in the end goal, and then from there, I filled around it, and then I inserted mythology, I inserted, like, pretty much I wouldn't say Christianity, but, like, the Ars Goetia, like, in this main series, there's everything from fairies, angels, devils, the Goetia, which is from the Book of Solomon, which is,
Mhm.
a lot of people see hell as basically chaos. But
Mm.
the Ars Goetia went even further to say, hey, there is a tiered system of the 72 pillars. So there is structure there. So I also show that not only can hell be orderly, but heaven can be chaos. And I pretty much take everything and make it a whole story.
Amazing. So you had the outline, you knew the characters, and then you
Hmm.
started to write. So you knew the bigger picture even before you started to write the first book.
Correct. I knew the outline, but the first time I actually wrote the first book was more so a feeling of expression. The first
Mm.
book was just how I felt about the world. It which is sad to say because the first book can be dark. It's a good story, but it can be dark, and it was a tale of how I felt, how everybody saw me and everything, and I paint like, even all of my characters in there are based
Mm.
off of people I know in my real life. So it's
Mm.
just like,
Revisiting some
out
of the dark stages of your life too.
correct, because during, like, when I wrote, before I did, how can I say, before I wrote the first book, I had hit a dark time before I moved to back to Virginia with my family. I was in Hawaii and I went through a bad phase where my depression took over and I actually attempted suicide. And it was because I failed to understand not only my feelings but just express. I kept everything in, never opened up to people, and it just ate away at me. And so when I moved to Virginia, I was like, let me go back to my roots. So I went
Mm.
back with my family, talked with them, got to feel everything with them, and just like start somewhere. And one of my friends was like, well, why don't you write it down? Well, I was like, I'm not the type to do an autobiography. He's like,
Mm.
well, you have an amazing imagination. Just make a story out of it. And
Yeah,
so I just had fun with it. And then from there, when I started putting my feelings into it and how I viewed myself and everything else in situations I've been through, I just made a story out of it.
that's so amazing that you used book writing as a tool to overcome a lot of dark things in life.
Yeah.
And
I mean, looking back now, like I'm so happy over the journey I've had because
yeah,
it's just it was rough, but now I'm like a lot better. I have three fur babies who love me. My husband and I are happy, and we're about to start surrogacy next year in
wow,
January. So it's just
amazing. Yeah, things
great.
are falling in place. So what I've also noticed, Nico, is especially with nonfiction writers. So let's
Hmm.
say an author wants to write a book on leadership. They know that they are
Hmm.
planning to write it. It's going to happen in a couple of years. And during that time, even before they start writing, they start doing all the research. which
Mhm.
study was done on this subject, who has given quotes on this particular topic. They
Correct.
start jotting all that on an Evernote or some kind of a document so that they know they can use it someday when they actually write their book. But in your
Mhm.
case, you just started to write your story by creating another story and using all these characters. So you knew a lot about mythology because of your interest in that subject. But did you
Correct.
actually take notes when you were learning about these things, or while writing this book, you had to go back and do some research?
So for I would say for the main series, no, I did
Mm-hmm.
not have to. Now for the mythology one, I wanted to get certain aspects of characters down, so I did do research. Like I literally went through and I put all 34 chapters. Like, hey, what needs to happen in this chapter? And then who am I going to introduce into it? How am I going to give them a different personality? But also, I didn't want it to play into like how everyone else sees them. I want them to see them a different way. Like the noble and everyone sees Amaterasu as the Japanese goddess of the sun, but she's always known as honorable. She's known as like uprighteous. But in mine, she isn't. She's very condescending. She doesn't have time for games. And in this book, the theme is like so. A lot of my books have themes. Whereas Paradox Saga has it. So let me rephrase. It had 12 books, but it also has four standalones. So that way, in the whole universe, because I put those four books randomly in time, so every the way to tell backstory, things like how people know their families, the history. But
Mm-hmm.
this one is about change. A lot of people know that in mythology, whenever it's you learn a lot of tales and it's pretty messed up what the gods do, but at the same time it teaches and it shows you things. But
Yeah.
I try to relate it to modern day history and what happens now and why it's wrong, whether it's racism, sexism, anything like that. Paint it in a different picture, that way it's more palatable, but at the same time give story action, make it entertainable, but just show, because everything starts off in this book with a prophecy that
Mm-hmm.
with the rise is to summarize, it's with the rise of the demigods comes the fall of the gods. And everyone knows how the gods feel about their power being challenged or
Mm-hmm.
things like that. So that's how the story starts.
That's interesting. What also, surprises me is the speed at which you write, Nico. I've seen authors take 5 years to write a 25,000 word book. And here you are writing 80,000 word manuscripts, in just a couple of months. So, how do you do it? Like, I know you also work for cybersecurity, right?
Mhm.
Do you still work for
Well,
them?
I'm in training. I'm in training right now, like so for school. I actually graduate December with my
Uh-huh.
bachelor's in cybersecurity with a focus in digital forensics. So I
Mhm.
know I'm very knowledgeable about it, but at the same time I'm not working. I'm pursuing a job, but most places in a sense don't accept you until you have the bachelor's or anything. I have all my certifications, but I
Yeah.
have to wait until I get my actual bachelor's.
So, how many
But
hours do you have practically in a day to focus on your writing?
I actually make time because I right now, like for example, right now I may work at I work at a front desk as the supervisor at a hotel.
Mhm.
But when I'm not doing anything, I'll pull up my like when I'm working, I'll split my screen. That way, I have the work, and I'll have my and I'll work from my Google Drive, and I'll
Mhm.
just start typing and having fun.
Wow, that's such a smart way of working because you don't have to
'Cause-
be paying 100% attention all throughout the day. So during the free time, you're actually making good use of that.
yes, because it's like it's I'm a very organized person, but I don't like my time being wasted. So if I can
Mhm.
capitalize it, I'd rather make the most of my time. I mean, at the end
Mm.
of the day, tomorrow isn't promised, so you make the most of the time you have always.
Yeah. And it also shows how much you love writing because I've seen some writers, of course, they also enjoy writing, but then they need a particular uh, kind of fragrance, they need a particular kind of music, they want their favorite chair, and only then they would write. But you seem to be
So,
writing everywhere.
so I write everywhere, but I do have like I love candles. Like I have this random one called peach rings. It literally tastes like it smells like the candy, and I'm like, oh, I love this.
Right.
I have my little thing because I'll be like if I
Yeah.
turn it over, my husband's like, oh, I
Wow.
can't bother you. So I have like all of my stuff in my office. So
Yeah.
anything that I need is here if I like just want to dive in and have fun. But I
Mm,
can write anywhere. In
yeah.
terms of how long it takes, the first book, or the not first book, the it takes me about a month to write a full book generally.
Mm,
Um, for this last one, that was 10,000 words. It was only 2 weeks. Because I thought of it, I literally thought of the whole saga, like the trilogy. So it's Last Prophecy,
mhm,
it's Trials and Tribulations, and Eclipse of the Divine. I thought of all of that within 3 hours, and then I outlined like I'm talking like I outlined the characters, I outlined every chapter like key points, and then I just had fun with it. It took me 2 weeks to write Last Prophecy as a whole because I had to take a like I'm just talking in time. At like 1 week I had to take off because of family ordeals. So in actual writing time, it only took 2 weeks, and I just
yeah.
had fun.
And how long is that book? That's pretty long, right? The Last
Yes,
Prophecy?
that's my longest one.
Yeah. Do you remember how many words was it?
It comes up to like 426. I can give you an answer right now. I have it pulled up. Yes, here we go. It is 436 pages, but
Oh,
it's like 10,000 words, I believe.
no, no, it must be 100,000 plus words.
Oh, is it?
Yes, yes, that's why I
You're
remember.
right. I, I don't know why I said 10 and there's an extra zero.
Because most of your other books are about 80,000 words. And that's also
Yeah.
pretty impressive because to write books of a consistent length is also a
Hmm.
talent. So,
Yeah. Oof.
is it because you outline your book in a certain way, you know exactly these are the
Yeah.
number of chapters? Is that why you're able to stick to the word count limit?
Yeah. I try because I try not to go too far because even
Yeah.
me, I do not like, I like reading, but if it draws on too much, I'm like, no, I'm good.
Mhm.
Because it has to be constant. It has to flow. But if it's like, I'll even notice if like one chapter is way too long, and I've tried to get good at it, but if as long as there's character progressions, plot, like intense, like it traps me. I'm good, but I try to keep it consistent because otherwise,
Yeah.
if you could fall around, like you could just there could be areas where it just falls.
Oh, yeah. So, once you finish the writing of a few books,
Mhm.
how did you decide? At what point did you decide that it's time for me to start publishing them now?
So that would be my best friend Fred. He's actually writing his book now. His
Mhm,
is about fairies and different. They were not or
mhm.
fairies. It's a whole elven tale of high fantasy. And he was like, "Hey, you should do this. Just follow through." And I was like, "Okay." And that was literally my answer. And my mom was like, "You're stupid. Do better." And I'm just like, "Okay." And
Yeah.
we played it off goofy, but I took it as, okay, you know what? I have a good support system. Let's go for
Mhm.
it.
Sure. And what about the decision to self-publish?
I think self-publishing is a lot more work, but I also respect it more because I tried when I first started. I was submitting my manuscript to like multiple places as far as traditional goes, even
Mhm,
hybrid. But
mhm.
a lot of people were declining me, like, "Oh, you aren't good enough. Oh, you aren't this." I even got declined by one for what was it? We just don't associate with LGBTQ, and I'm like,
Oh my God.
okay, well, whatever. It is what it is. I can do that all by myself. So then I started doing research, and I was like, when I like self publishing more because you learn what actually goes into the process. You
Yeah.
learn everything that you have to do from write. Well, for one, writing your book. Once you write your book, you need to submit it, make sure it's properly edited, check, and recheck, make sure it flows, repeat words, things like that. From there, you have page edit design and all of that. And even after all the book process is done and you submit it, you get your ASIN, your ISBN, you get everything online. That's just the start. Even all of that is just the start of the battle. Because at the end of the day, you still have to self promote. You have to publish. I put myself
Absolutely.
out there and I go like this weekend. I have a what's called BlurredCon. It's a Comic Con basically for all nerds of anime stuff like that, comics.
Uh-huh.
And I'm gonna go cosplay, have fun with people, but also promote myself. Get to because I also have my personal books, and I pretty much are what is it called, my author copies, and I can sell those if people are interested. But I even got this. I don't know if you've ever heard of Dot. It's like a little band. If you put
Uh-huh.
all of your, you can put all of your sites and information on it, and like so, my website is on it. My social media is on it. Where each book, like in case someone wants to go purchase a specific book on Amazon, that link is there, so they could just pick and choose.
So they can just
And
connect it by scanning your band.
it's like a phone. You know how you pay with your phone,
Mm-hmm. That's so
so it
cool.
just comes up.
Yeah. So of course, when you self-publish, the marketing is also, a part of it. So
It is.
how did you actually discover happy self-publishing and choose to collaborate with us?
So when I came up, like, so I googled top three. When I was googling, I was like, oh, let's look for like the top three as far as what's like sales, things like that. It was you, Archangel, and another one.
Mm-hmm.
And I was researching all of them, but I was getting lost on the other person's page, so I just didn't even bother. So then it came down to you and Archangel, and I was researching both. So I had messaged you guys, and I had messaged Archangel, and then Archangel was pretty much like, "You should honestly stick with Happy Self Publishing because we don't actually do fantasy." And I was like,
Oh.
"But you're named after archangels, so I don't understand." And I was like, "Okay, it is what it is." So then I was
I'm
like,
so
"Okay, let
glad
me."
that they don't do fantasy. Otherwise, we wouldn't have got connected. Yeah. Right.
I was laughing so hard at that though, and I was like, "Okay." And that was when we had our first meeting that same night is when they said that, or well, when they messaged me because they were waiting to reply. So when they messaged me that, we were actually already on our first web call.
Sure. Yeah. And how did you enjoy the whole process of getting your cover design, getting the book edited, doing the interior design, and all of that?
So it's I don't know. Because I'm OCD and I'm always trying to put my hands in things. I have to learn to step back in a sense because
Mm.
otherwise nothing gets done. So I have to always remind myself, leave them alone, stop bugging them, and I'm just like ah. But I find that with the process, like the when I submit it, the editing easy. We once we go through and I know I requested the same editor, and she's pretty much the same one who does all of my books as far as
Mhm.
that. And she always tells me, "Oh, this actually flowed. I like with this. I can't wait to look like when because she'll put like little comments and stuff within
Yeah.
the thing, and they'll be like within the proof, and she'll be like, I can't wait to see what happens next time. I like this. So I think so far though, she liked Last Prophecy the most because
Mm.
she's like, this is amazing how you pulled this together.
Yeah.
And it's nice having the team like actually communicate everything. Like, oh hey, what if we do this? Um, I actually ended up doing the cover art for the first book was done by y'all. I actually did the cover art for the second book and the third or the other book because I was just
Mhm.
like, oh, I didn't know that I could just create my own art and just do
Yeah,
it that way. I
that
thought it
was so
because
cool. And it was a learning for us as well. Because, ever since AI has been uh, the most important topic that everybody is discussing, within the
hmm
publishing industry, people were totally against the usage of AI because what about human creativity? What about all of this? But then the way you used was so amazing. Of course, you didn't, it was your book, you had written it, but for certain elements like the cover art, instead of, we use illustrators all the time, which is fine, but
hmm
you had certain specific requirements and you beautifully came up with these artworks. And it was a learning for us too. We thought, wow, we could use this, we could do something similar for our future books as well."
hmm yeah, if you use also if you use Open Art AI, the anything that you put in there, of course you have to tailor it down, but it's specific to your it's original works, so it's
Mhm.
never you never have to worry about it
Somebody else
being
using it again. Hmm.
correct. But as long as like because I know what I wanted, I put key things, and then from there is where you tailor it down with words and just have fun with it. And I already knew what I wanted with Bloody Vendetta. And then as far as I knew that I wanted a mythological look for the Last Prophecy,
Yep.
but I also knew that I wanted well, not the main character, but the main I don't know what to really call her. Like, I don't know if you know who Nox is. In Greek mythology, there before the gods, there were the primordials, and she is one of the primordials, where she's pretty much the mother of the fates, the mother of the river Styx. Like she's the primordial of dark or primordial of the night,
Mm.
and she's pretty much the one who started all this change.
Right. And I love how, by just looking at the cover, we know this has got something to do with Greek mythology because of the fonts used. So your inputs were definitely, amazing, which is why we could come up with some really world-class books.
Yeah, because I was like, I like this, so I was just
Yeah.
like, the Greek mythology. I was like, I want to keep the font simply because
Hmm.
it's unique, it's different. It also gives a different feel when you look at it. So,
Yeah. So out of everything in the whole process of self-publishing, what is one thing that you completely enjoyed the most?
mm, the most of self-publishing, honestly, when it comes to self-publishing, like just the writing, like I just had fun, and then once I think it's more so the concept. Let me rephrase that.
Mm.
Once I write it, and like I just finally seeing the finished work and giving life to what I created,
Mm.
that's what I love.
Right.
It's just a feeling of accomplishment, success.
Satisfaction.
It feels like I don't want to say like you're being heard, but you can also share your message with others.
Mm. So true. That feeling of, it's a very fulfilling experience, right? When you
Hmm.
finally see your little idea getting converted to this beautiful book.
Hmm.
And if there was one thing that you would do differently for your next book, what would that be?
For the next book, so I'm actually literally like on my big monitor with notes everywhere for my next book, because I've been literally trying to fit things in. Um, but it's for my next book. I really don't know. Like I don't want to say that's for someone who's OCD like me, like just wants to control everything. That's honestly the best thing. Like the fact that I
Hmm.
don't know what's gonna come next. People who
Right.
write to just make money, you're not gonna get anywhere because simply you don't get money that fast with books. It doesn't go that way.
Um,
But the opportunities come after that. And I write like I never know what's gonna come next. That is the joy of it. And eventually I do want to turn my books into like anime because as you can see, I love
yeah,
anime from Sailor Moon, and I like have them all along the wall. So
so beautiful.
I just the to me the unknown is the best part because I never know what's going to come next in that. And when
Mm.
it comes to my writing,
That's amazing. So, what about that beautiful star that you have in your background? That's the logo that
oh
I see in
yeah, that's my
your
logo.
books. Yeah. So, did you create it yourself?
Yes. So I ended up sketching it myself. It's a concept from each of my books.
Mm.
So the star itself, the six-pointed star, is the birthmark of the main character Elias. Um, it's actually the birthmark that's on every anyone born to the moon gales. It's somewhere on their body. Syria
Mm.
has it like on her upper like right above her breast, and then Alphonse, the grandfather, has it on his back on the top. Elias has it on his hand, which is why he wears his glove. Because of course no one knows that he's alive, or there would be questions. And
Mm.
Syria definitely did not want him alive, so it's like he had to hide. So whenever he
Mm.
wears that glove, it's simply because he's hiding his birthmark. The
Mm.
wings are basically for because I don't want to like ruin things. So it's just like there's an angel wing and then there's a fallen angel wing, but basically a devil wing. It can be
Mm.
interpreted each way just to know what's to come. The
Mm.
halo and then the star of Orion, um, which pretty much combines it. Because I
Lovely.
also have a book about angels and I also have one about constellations, where the constellations actually manifest from Aquarius to Ophiuchus to Andromeda, the chained lady. So,
Right. And I think we've used this extensively, inside the book, on the back
mhm,
cover, everywhere. And I'm sure if you had just written one book at a time, you wouldn't have created this beautiful universe of characters and things. And this
yeah.
logo represents so many different things across all the books. So, uh, very well done, Nico. Um, one final thing. Uh, when you decided to publish your book, you chose to publish under your pseudonym, Neko Craft.
Hmm.
So, Why was that a conscious decision? Why did you want to do that?
Because when someone looks at when someone sees someone's true name, what's the first thing that comes to mind? They're like, "Oh, well, let me dive into this person's history. Let me look at this. Let me research this."
Mm,
But at the end of the day, that's not really what matters. You should be able to just read the art, read the work for what it is, and just enjoy
yeah.
it, immerse yourself, dive into it. My
Mm,
name, Neko Craft, comes from my middle name. It's a half of my middle name. And then my last name, Craft, is from my grandmother. My grandmother who raised me, that's her last name. And I've
mhm,
always loved craft. I mean, of course, I love my last name, Finney, but
yeah.
craft is basically freedom of expression. It's no matter what it is, it's
Mm,
creativity. Arts and craft, witchcraft, spellcraft, no matter what it is, no matter how it's put into there, it's just abundant creativity. And I wanted to
mm,
capture that.
yeah. Awesome. I just wish that your author brand under your beautiful name, Neko Craft, keeps growing and all your books become huge successes. One final question before I leave you, Neko. You told me that you initially wrote the story as a script and then you had to convert that into a novel. In the
Mhm.
future, do you have, you know, a wish that your books get turned into scripts, which in turn get turned into movies someday?
So, not so much movies. I it sounds so terrible, but humans, because my grandma, and my husband had to talk about this as well, and
Uh-huh.
they said, "Would you ever want that?" I was like, "I would love for it to be animated, but
Mhm.
never." I just if it is, that'd be awesome. Like if someone ever nominated for a real movie or a show, that'd be great.
Mhm.
But personally, I'm biased against it because humans can ruin anything. It sounds so bad to say, but
Yeah.
they
I'm sure most authors whose books have been converted into movies would agree with what you said. Right.
so that's I mean, if it's animated, all it is a voiceover. They
Mm.
can just give their all to just using a voice. But once you put the human element into it, there's facial expressions,
Yeah.
just body language, everything, and I'm just like, you're not like, and as someone like OCD like me, you're not capturing my character enough, or
Mm.
I would constantly pick, and it would never be good enough, and that's what I don't want. I want to be able to
Mm.
enjoy it the most I can.
So true. So finally, what would be your message to all those aspiring authors out there who are still thinking twice before publishing their books?
Go for it, because at the end of the day, you can only learn through failure, and you
Mm.
can only learn through success. If you put yourself out there and you fail, then at least you know, one, hey, I tried, I put myself out there, but two, you gain so much experience in doing that. And every failure is a lesson. That's what I had to learn. Even
Mm.
though like I constantly put myself out there trying to do traditional and getting the door shut in my face, that doesn't the world doesn't end, it doesn't stop. That just means you need to have a new avenue of approach. You need to do things differently and push yourself. But you also need to assess yourself and value yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And things are so easy these days as compared to what they were, let's say, 20 years ago, when there are so many different ways to get your book
Resources.
published. Yeah, why not make use of them? Great. Thank you so much, Nico, for your time. It was lovely talking to you
No
and
problem.
reconnecting. Thanks for coming on Auto
Likewise.
Success Show.